Joining me now is Citizens United President David Bossie. David, it's great to have you. Obviously, we're doing a victory lap in the Trump camp, but from the victory last night, I have to ask, though, I think we all knew that Trump was going to win New Hampshire. Did you think that Nikki Haley was going to do as well as she still thinks she did?
You know, it's all in the eye of the beholder. I think Nikki Haley's trying to grasp onto those few straws that she has left. This race is over. Let's just break it down. She got between 25 and 30% of her total vote was from Republicans. This is a Republican primary, and she only got less than a third of her vote were from Republicans. And she wants to tout that she came close, but she really didn't come close. 11 points is an enormous victory when you have that many independents turning out to vote in the Republican primary. Donald Trump trounced her. It just beat her soundly in New Hampshire last night. He beat her soundly a couple weeks ago, 8 days ago in Iowa. So this race is effectively over. She's going to try to stay in it for many of the reasons that you talked about. But there's going to be an inflection point here where she's going to have to decide, is she going to burn the bridge that she is on? And she's going to have to decide, is it time to get out and get behind Donald Trump, who is the apparent nominee of the Republican Party, and is going to be the nominee of the Republican Party, because she has zero pathway. There is no path to Nikki Haley becoming the nominee. And so if you just look at what's going to happen in the next month or 6 weeks between now and Super Tuesday, if she was to stay in, and I don't believe she will, but if she was to stay in, she would come out of that with zero delegates, zero opportunity, zero future, and will have only done Joe Biden's bidding by continuing to waste time, money, resources on this ridiculous charade that they continue to have as a campaign.
Do you think, though, that there is some possibility that Nikki Haley and the Nikki Haley team feel like maybe they are going to somehow, like I mentioned, become a default nominee if something were to go down with the 4 indictments, if Donald Trump were to be convicted, thrown behind bars? Do you think that she has vowed to stay in to the bitter end because she's somehow sitting there waiting, like, you know, in Buzzard's Circle? It feels like that's kind of what she's doing. You know, Ron DeSantis, I believe, cares about the country. I believe he cares about the party. He knew that he put all his chips into Iowa, spent a lot of time there, and he wasn't able to, you know, mount that hill in Iowa. So he said, hey, listen, there's not a pathway. I'm going to get out. I'm going to support Donald Trump. But it seems to me like Nikki Haley is still waiting in the wings. She's trying to sniff the blood that Donald Trump might be, you know, in for. So I feel like her and maybe more so her donors are waiting for something bad to happen to Donald Trump legally.
I completely agree with you. And I do believe it is more her donors putting her in that position than even her. It's not that she disagrees with it, but if those donors were to abandon her, she would be out of this race. That's a fact. So I think that Nikki Haley has a lot of contemplating to do. And let me just say that if you recall what happened a little over a week ago in Iowa, Ron DeSantis, as you said, I have no pathway. Actually, on election night, he said, I punched my ticket. I came in second. I did well. On to New Hampshire, on to the future. Within several days, he came around and looked at the path, looked at his opportunities, and decided to get out. I'm hopeful that in the heat of the moment, Nikki Haley said, I've come in a strong second, even though she didn't, and I've done all these things, and I'm going to move on to the future. And really now, reality is starting to set in. And the harsh reality of there is no pathway. There's not even a modicum of a pathway by winning delegates. Could she be, you know, the vulture, as you put it, hanging around to see if there's a carcass? Possibly. But you can still do that. If you're Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis is doing that too. I mean, in essence, he could be somebody that is turned to if the sky fell. And I don't believe that for a second that it's going to happen. But there's a lot of scenarios, a lot of hypotheticals that these folks and their teams will run through. One of them would be that it would be an open convention, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could get all the way into the craziness of that, which is not going to happen. But Nikki Haley has a lot of soul searching to do, and we're going to find out a lot about her in the coming days.
Well, I want to actually take a look. You know, you alluded to what she said last night. Former President Trump alluded to what she said last night. So she didn't go as far as to say that she won, kind of like she did in Iowa, where she made herself, second place magically. But, she did have a lot to say last night. She was overly confident, in my opinion, as unlikable as ever. Let's take a listen for those that didn't have the pleasure of watching her last night.
At one point in this campaign, there were 14 of us running, and we were at 2% in the polls. Well, I'm a fighter. And I'm scrappy. And now we're the last one standing next to Donald Trump. And today we got close to half of the vote. We still have a ways to go, but we keep moving up.
Yeah. So she counted that as a victory for herself. But what do you say about South Carolina? I mean, that's her state. And she's doing very poorly in South Carolina. That should be at least humbling for her. Does she think she's going to go back to South Carolina and campaign, and all of a sudden the people that know her best, the state that she governed, all of a sudden they're going to change their minds because of some donor bucks coming in? I mean, I don't see how that's going to happen, and I see that as being very embarrassing for her.
She is going to get trounced in her home state. To be honest with you, who wants to go through that? If you're Nikki Haley and you're a two-term governor, a former UN ambassador, and running for president, you want to look at your home state and think that they're going to love you. But Donald Trump has the endorsement of both of the United States senators and the current governor who served as her lieutenant governor. Okay. And most of the delegation in the United States House. She has every conservative to speak of Donald Trump has every conservative in South Carolina endorsing him. The polling is devastating. Nikki Haley is going to get somewhere in the 30s, probably in the low 30s in South Carolina. Why? Because unlike New Hampshire, only Republicans and registered Republicans can vote in that primary. And so she's not going to do well in her home state, and it will be devastating. And I don't think that's a way to go out. To be honest with you, why not look at last night as a victory in her mind and get out between now and South Carolina on a high note, claim your victories, and look like you are someone who, like you said a moment ago, is in it for the right reasons, is in it for America, and wants America to succeed. Get behind Donald Trump now and allow yourself to have a future amongst those Trump voters.
See, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because there are some saying that, she needs to salvage herself if she wants to have a future political career, maybe looking towards 2028. That's why I was happy to see Ron DeSantis get out when he was, because I do think he has a bright future, and I think he has a bright future in 2028. I don't think Nikki Haley thinks she has a bright future in 2028, and I don't think anybody thinks that, at least those that are Trump supporters or DeSantis supporters, I don't think any of us want her or are going to want her in 2028. There's more of a chance of us wanting Liz Cheney, in my opinion. So I think for her, it's true. I mean, she is Liz Cheney. She is Hillary Clinton. But I think for her, she's thinking, what do I have to lose? I don't want to run again in 2028. I might as well keep going. I got the donor dollars behind me. I know that whenever I do get out, I'm still going to have a position on some board making way more money than I'm worth. So I think for her, it's like, might as well stay in the spotlight as long as I got people willing to fund me. I might as well keep doing this. She's kind of like a John Kasich in that, where she's just going to stick around because why the hell not? I don't think she's trying to garner a political future. I think that she's just doing this now because she likes the spotlight and she's going to ride it out for as long as that spotlight and the dollars remain.
Unless, and I look, you are right on target. You're right over the target on that. It's whether or not she believes she is capable of being on that short list for vice president while Donald Trump is still in the process of making up his mind as to who it is. So by getting out and endorsing him, you probably endear yourself to him a little bit and fix and repair some of the bridges that you've burned by staying in until the bitter end, as you described, with the donor class really forcing this. She removes herself from that. So I don't know the percentage that she has to be the VP nominee. Anyway, I do know his personal relationship with her fairly well. So I wouldn't say that it's very high, but if you're going to have any chance, it would be by getting out now.
Yeah, I don't see her being the running mate. I don't see Donald Trump making her the running mate. I don't know why. It's kind of hard. I know that he calls people names and then he goes back and, he called Vivek names as well. He's called them all names and then he warms up to them afterwards. But it's kind of hard to go from this person is a bird brain to I want her running the country by my side. I think that's a hard recovery.
It is, but, Lindsey Graham, had to shred his cell phone because Donald Trump gave his cell phone number out. Remember back in 2016 during the nomination process? He has had incredible relationships with a lot of people, and sometimes they start out very badly, and they end up being something you never would have thought. I've been around Donald Trump a lot and over the years, and it's kind of surprising to watch. But I will tell you again, it is Nikki Haley it's a tall mountain to climb to be able to get to that. I don't see him picking her because I know the type of person he's looking for, the loyalty and the America First belief, because he doesn't want to let down the future either. He wants to pick somebody who is going to be the future of the America First movement, and I don't know that she fits that.
No, she doesn't. Ukraine first is more of Nikki Haley's jam there. I want to ask you, because I know that you spend a lot of time, obviously, around the Trump campaign, very, very close to all the folks in there. So I just got to ask you, because this has come up a couple of times, and it recently has come up. Why does Donald Trump continue to go after Kayleigh McEnany? Because I know Kayleigh personally. I'm sure that you know her personally to some extent as well. I've never heard her really come out against the former president. She said some nice things about Ron DeSantis. She said some things about the way that she sees the election going, but she hasn't really thrown any daggers the president's way. So I'm just a little confused why it feels like he has it out for her and why he goes after her on social media or on Truth Social on more than one occasion. Can you shine a light on that for me? Because I find it perplexing.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. It is a good one. But knowing his view of Fox News and knowing what the president believes is the unfair coverage in his mind from Fox News.
But David, I mean, as somebody as someone who works for Fox News, I'm around a lot of hosts at Fox News. I am, obviously a host at Fox News.
I've been there. I know.
Yeah, Fox News covers Donald Trump very favorably, and a lot of the hosts and a lot of the primetime hosts cover him very favorably. They sit there and obviously sing his praises, talk about all the great things that he has done. So does he
But Tommy, you know what I'm saying, which
but it's not.
She's a victim. To answer your question about Kayleigh, is I think that part of it is that he believes that Fox has been unfair, and therefore he is attacking her with part of that as being the underpinnings of it.
Yeah, it's confusing to me, and I have to say, just personally, through this whole process, I've been a Trump supporter for a very long time. As my career has come up, I've been, through the first administration, obviously one of the biggest cheerleaders, 2020, very big cheerleader for Donald Trump, all the way through. You know, I did have some things to say about COVID, about the Fauci stuff. I had some things to say about recently when he was kind of touting Black Lives Matter. That really rubbed me the wrong way. So I feel like it, you know, for me, and to be a person of integrity, I've got to call out even the guy I support. I got to call him out when I disagree with things. I also didn't like the First Step Act. I was kind of vocal about that. But through this process, I've obviously been a fan of Ron DeSantis, and I've said some things about Donald Trump during this process that rubbed me the wrong way. He hasn't come after me personally yet, to my knowledge, so that's why I'm a little confused, because I've taken much more direct and pointed shots at the former president than Kayleigh McEnany has. So that's why I found it perplexing. I thought if anybody was going to be target, it was going to be me.
Yeah, it's part of it is that Kayleigh worked in the inner sanctum, right, and worked closely with him, and I think he feels aggrieved by somebody who is really one of his closest people when she was there, and is now, as you say, you know, stating things about whether it's Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, that President Trump just doesn't like. And so I don't know the answers. I haven't spoken to him at all about it, but I did see it myself.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of Kayleigh McEnany. I think she's such a sweet and wonderful person, and I think she did such a good job in her role for Donald Trump. You know, I think that she did the best job of anyone on that podium and that lectern. So I would just like to see that get smoothed over, because I just think that she's such a great person and such a great advocate and ally of the America First movement. But that's all I will say on that. The last thing I want to ask you about is, again, the January 6th stuff. I don't think we're ever going to know the truth about January 6th, but we get some more information that's troubling, and then it feels like a lot of people just find it to be a right-wing conspiracy, but we now are getting word that the House January 6th committee, which was a sham committee, deleted more than 100 encrypted files before the GOP took the majority. I don't know if we're ever going to get any resolution on this, but boy, if there's anything that stings, that's pretty,
it's outrageous.
Pretty powerful.
It is absolutely outrageous. Benny Johnson, Liz Cheney, and that entire staff of that a joke of a committee should be subpoenaed immediately. There should be depositions. I'll be honest with you, there should potentially be a grand jury here in Washington, D.C. about it. This is not something that is just some right-wing, conspiracy theory. This is outrageous. And I will say, as somebody who was a victim of that committee, they released, when they released their report, they released the personal information of many of us. I'm not the only one. Of many of us, and our dates of birth, our social security numbers, our home addresses. They released that to the general public, okay? Because that's how they were paying people back. Okay. It is outrageous that this committee deleted these files. It is outrageous that they broke the public trust by giving out our personal information. And it was a lot of people, I will say. So this is a committee that needs to be held to account. And Liz Cheney, Benny Thompson, Adam Schiff, the rest of these incredibly bad people who served on this committee because they hated Donald Trump more than they loved our country. Let's make sure we got it straight. Mm-hmm. They hate Donald Trump more than they love our nation, and they were willing to do anything. And deleting encrypted files on the way out the door that probably held exculpatory information. Why are you going to get rid of information that the next group is going to come in and see, unless it's the exculpatory material that goes against what that committee found? That's the outrage. And that's what U.S. attorneys and judges, instead of prosecuting those folks who were exercising their First Amendment rights on January 6th, that's what they should be looking at.
It worries me coming up into this next election as well, because it's not just that. We also know that the feds encourage banks to search for terms like mega and Trump and other things, keywords that they found to be problematic. It just feels like heading into the next election, there's going to be such a silencing campaign going on that for anybody that wants to talk about election integrity, anybody that wants to talk about very real instances, provable instances of voter fraud, it feels like now everybody feels terrified to say anything of the sort, to question anything at all, because they know that the weight of the federal government and all these other outside entities is going to be on them. It feels like it's going to be quite the chilling effect heading into November. And we know Donald Trump is going to say it like it is. We know that he's always going to go out there. But for the people that are, littler than Donald Trump, that don't have the resources that Donald Trump has, what's your advice to them? Just average, everyday Americans who are worried they're going to be swept up in this because they support the former president and we've got an election coming up.
There's a lot of us out there that are whether they write op-eds in their local newspapers, whether they want to go to a rally or a protest in their neighborhood, they're afraid because the government intimidates the American people now instead of supporting it. This is a dangerous time in America. We have to get it back. It's the reason that Donald Trump must win this November. We have to get our government back for the people, not it has to serve the people, not intimidate the people, not threaten the people, which is where we are today. Joe Biden has weaponized every lever of government. He has weaponized every prosecutor that they can touch at the federal, state, and local level to prosecute people for exercising their First Amendment rights, for standing up for liberty and freedom, for supporting Donald Trump. I got to tell you, having been somebody who's had to live through all of this over the last 8+ years, it is hard for even people with organizations that support us. And it's hard. And it is really difficult for your average person. And I can only say that for the next 10 months, we have to go shoulder to shoulder, work every minute of every day to support each other and support Donald Trump to make sure he's the next president of the United States so that we can throw out the Biden administration and rip the DOJ and the FBI apart and make it what it's supposed to be, and take it out of the hands of the radical left prosecutors. It's a dangerous time we live in, and it's only going to get corrected. That and so many other problems that we have in America are only going to get solved if Donald Trump is the next president.
It's going to be a big process. I hope that we get there where we can start the process of starting from scratch. I think that's the best case scenario. But now I think we all have to have our heads down and our eyes up and just focus on the prize. Thank you for everything that you do, always speaking the truth. Thank you for taking the time. Of course, the day after New Hampshire, a big day for everybody in conservative media and politics. So I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope to talk to you soon. God bless.
Thanks, Tommy. Appreciate you having me.